Good afternoon, collectors and friends. Welcome back to Leighton's Loft. Usually, we broadcast on the first Wednesday of every month. Because of a scheduling issue, we are doing it on the second Wednesday of this month. But I believe moving forward, we'll go back to that schedule. So if you enjoy today's content, make sure you subscribe to our Facebook channel and know that next month's episode will be on the first Wednesday of the month. How are you today, Lou?
I'm very good, and thanks for accommodating me moving it to the second week this month.
Oh, easy peasy.
All right, excellent. I'm just blown away by the whole setup there. That's just awesome.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Lou. So it is now 1 week into the NFL season, and I'll tell you, I of course respect Aaron Rodgers' play on the field. Not from this past Sunday, by the way, but I mean as an overall body of work.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, I don't read as much news anymore related to sports because I just, I followed enough. I don't read the articles. I don't need to,
Right.
I don't have time. But I saw some of his comments about Jet fans who are willing to pack it in. And I love that he's feisty. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So you like the comments?
I do.
Okay.
I like that he's feisty. And to be fair, I'm talking about the comments where he says, hey, didn't do what we have to do. It is a long season. And let's be clear, if he wanted to be even more direct, he could say how many teams have finished undefeated in the NFL. Virtually no one. Do I think they're going to go on an epic run and win every other game? No. Their defense was porous at best.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I digress. I'm just saying I was fired up. I didn't feel like he alienated me, as far as being a fan. But I can tell you that I have friends who are Jet fans who definitely are willing to pack it in after week one.
Oh, yeah. I imagine. Yeah. I'm curious about the taste in your mouth after that game.
I'm going to be very clear. I don't think we have the right head coach. I don't think that because of game one. I didn't think he was the right head coach before game one.
Yeah.
What's going on, Nick? I appreciate each and every one of you. Let me change so I can see the comments. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. What's up, Bender Rules and Dennis? So my takeaway is the offense will get better. I hope the defense can't get worse. It was really bad. They couldn't stop them at all.
Yeah, and again, it's San Francisco, and it's week one, so it's hard to dig in too deeply, but that had to leave a bad taste. It's so funny how different up here in New England and New York, how that all turned this weekend, because we were in such a bad mood coming into the season.
Kidding me? You guys just beat one of the best teams in the league, or at least top 10, like a playoff team.
Yeah, and it's like it's 1 week. No one's going nuts up here, but it just changes the whole tone of everything. And I felt like it kind of went the opposite way with the Jets there. San Francisco, losing to San Francisco on the road, no big deal. But the way it happened, it was not a good-looking game.
That's an understatement. But like I said, I'm trying to listen. Maybe it's my old age, Lou. I just don't get as excited anymore. In other words, if this was week 15, sure. I've just been doing this a long time. I know the Jets haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. I'm well aware of that. But I'm also well aware of the season. At this point, I actually don't even know how many weeks it is because of all the different nuances. But 17 or 18 weeks. I think he's professional. Do I think that we're going to win the Super Bowl? No. The odds of the Jets winning the Super Bowl are very, very low. I really just hope to make the playoffs. And if we don't make the playoffs, please just give me a chance to believe we might make the playoffs for most of the season, even if we miss.
Yeah, make it meaningful late. So if you don't make the playoffs, do you want Bill? Because there's a lot of talk up here about Bill going to the Jets.
Oh, that makes me so ill. That's my initial gut.
Yeah.
I guess I come from, and believe me, I wish I had the skills to play in the NBA, but I come from like the Magic Bird and Michael era in the NBA, which is like, we don't want super teams.
Yeah.
So like Bill Belichick is not liked by a hardcore Jet fan.
I imagine.
If you're on the fringe, Lou, then maybe that's okay. But for guys like myself and my brother and my buddy Lee and Stempa, these guys, I couldn't imagine for the life of me they would want Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it's that whole thing it's a wild dynamic. The whole thing is a wild dynamic. It's going to be interesting to see. But the Jets, if anything, the Jets are always fun. They're always fun to watch because there's always stuff going on.
Exactly. They're like, they're constant drama. It's like a soap opera that airs 7 days a week. Because even when they're not playing, really the new way the New York media is, there's enough of a story.
And I'm not a huge fan of Rodgers as a person. As a player, he's a terrific player. There's no doubt about it. I've never been a huge fan of him as a person, so I'm kind of enjoying the drama, and especially with we always enjoy drama with the Jets too, as I'm sure you enjoy with us.
Yeah, well, I tell you, because we got lots to cover today, but I certainly have no set agenda, meaning a certain order. It's interesting, Lou, once again, maybe, and it's not my birthday, but maybe it's because of 9/11, and, I was reading a lot of stuff early, getting emotional the way I started my day. I remember where I was. I'm sure you remember where you were, Lou, and a lot of Americans, whether it be young or old, remember where we were 23 or so years ago.
Absolutely.
And so as I find getting older in the sports world, the volume that's offered to us has changed. In other words, let's just use 9/11, not that that's a great reference point, but I remember Ed McCaffrey got hurt on Monday night. It's the reason why I knew about 9/11 in the morning, because I was watching SportsCenter. It was very bizarre to me that SportsCenter was reporting on regular news, right? And so just as far as sports is concerned, it's so voluminous in its offerings. And not just the offerings any longer. There's a specialty niche channel, website, coverage, podcast devoted to really everything from curling to Major League Baseball. And so I'm not suggesting that I disagree about Aaron Rodgers as a person, because that's not where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this. I hope that they're not criminals. They meaning the athletes that we're paying to go watch in the field or on TV.
Right.
But I'll be honest, I really care very little what they do in their personal life, with the exception of probably one thing, because it's very close to my heart. And I also understand, and that's why I don't judge anyway, because I don't know. For example, Lou, you might be active in 11 different communities, 11 different organizations in your community, but you're not the type of individual to wear it on your sleeve.
Yeah.
And so does that mean you're less of a person because you're not telling everyone about the 11 organizations that you're involved in? I don't think so.
No.
And so my point is, it's very easy to judge from a distance.
Yeah.
And versus where we are 23 years ago, it's actually even easier to be an armchair quarterback, to be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
And so, listen, does Aaron Rodgers seem like a prick? Candidly, he does.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. I actually want the starting quarterback of the New York Jets to be good enough to be a prick.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And to amend what I'm saying, because I don't want to be taken wrong, all of this is kind of fun for me. It's like I grew up with the Gastineau and Klecko Jets.
Yeah.
None of those were bad guys, but we really just had fun disliking them, And it's that kind of sports fun distraction dislike, because again, we get 9/11 today. You're right. I listen to sports talk radio because it's a release. And I enjoy it, and just having the discussion and having a few laughs. And it's just like, it's nothing. I have no personal problem with Aaron Rodgers. It's just that it's fun kind of digging at the Jets, and it's fun kind of
definitely. I mean, come on, listen. I almost wear being a woeful Jet fan, Lou, as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
So same way that I'm talking somewhat serious, I'm also understanding that this is in the realm of something that really is just inconsequential to the world.
Right. In our worlds, I mean, you're gonna wake up tomorrow. Everyone's gonna be healthy and happy, and that's the important thing. Whether the Jets win or lose, same with us up here in New England. But still, it's a nice little distraction, and it's a nice low impact thing to really kind of get into and have some fun with. That's all.
Absolutely, totally agree with you there, Lou. And
by the way, the Patriots ruined me in almost every survivor pool I've been in. I took the Bengals.
It's my first year. I haven't participated in a while, and I'm sure I would have lost just like you did, Lou. So it probably saved me a few shekels.
Yep.
What's going on, Brian? Happy birthday to your sister-in-law. What's up, Dennis? What's going on, Alfred? Appreciate everyone tuning in today. So, football, of course, is very exciting. And if you didn't know, we're running a free survivor pool. Obviously, it's after week 1, so you would have had to enter already. But if you want to follow along, I think you can do that at runyourpool.com under the group Vintage Breaks. And I think it's kind of fun, Lou. We're giving away, I think, like a $500 break credit to the person who survives.
I've already been out there, too.
You and probably several others. I haven't checked the stats yet about this past week, but I know that the Patriots help blow things up.
Yeah.
As far as maybe just let's cover, because I know you're more so into it than me. I'm aware of a number. What do you think, other than Jets gossip, is like the football takeaway from week one that we should discuss for a few minutes? Because I mean, I love the NFL, like many of the folks who are watching us do.
That's a really good question. The NFL takeaway. The first thing that comes to mind for me, and it's less football related, is the whole incident in Miami with Tyreek Hill. That was kind of interesting. That's an interesting story that I take away from that. It's going to be a thing for discussion. 49ers don't look great. I know they beat up on the Jets, and I understand that, but they didn't look particularly impressive to me at that point. The Chiefs, for me, I always used to laugh at how much people hated the Patriots because they won so much. I'm a Patriots guy. I realize the threat to the dynasty and the whole legacy and Tom Brady and all that stuff. I love this Chiefs team. I just love it. Patrick Mahomes is so fun to watch, and they're so much like the old Patriots. They win on that toe out there on Thursday night. That's the way the Patriots would have won. It's just Patrick Mahomes, I will watch. It's appointment TV. I will watch him every week because I just love him. And he's not quite there because he's got to win a couple more Super Bowls, but he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. He just is.
I agree with everything you just said. Yeah. And even though I don't know if it's a takeaway for me from week one, I feel that Patrick Mahomes is appointment viewing, just like you said. And if we don't realize that, we're going to, just like when Michael Jordan was playing, maybe to a certain extent when, I don't know, Mike Trout was at the top of his game or Tiger Woods was at the top of his game, two different sports, two different players. But I think that people should understand that even if you're not a fan of the Chiefs, if you appreciate football, anything beyond your own team, it is incredibly entertaining to watch him.
Oh, he's great. It kind of reminds me, I'm not the biggest NBA guy, but when I was growing up and Larry Bird was around, you watched Larry Bird. He was Larry Bird. Special. Yeah. I mean, it's just those types of special athletes you just watch, and everyone's all up in arms about Taylor Swift and this whole thing just adds to it for me. I just love the whole Kansas City story.
It's funny, and we'll finish up with that, and we'll actually talk about some card stuff in a minute. I think people have they've flat out asked me, women, men, hey, what do you think about this Taylor stuff? Do you think that it's BS, or do you think it's bothersome to the game of football? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's all entertainment to me.
Oh,
great. It's like a little bit of a wrestling element with Miss Elizabeth, right? Back in the day with Macho Man and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
So the fact that it seems to be a legitimate romance, I think that Taylor and Kelsey make a great duo. I mean, even if they end up breaking up, I just think it's highly entertaining.
Oh, and having Taylor involved, and you got daughters watching football games with fathers, and it's like there's nothing bad about this. I don't understand the objection. I really don't. There's nothing bad about it. And this team, if you love football, if you love sports, you got to watch this team because they're unbelievable. They're just awesome, and just enjoy it while you can.
So I just taped this week's episode of the Vintage Spotlight. It is our 5th episode. For those that don't know, I started it at this point a couple months ago with Jeremy Lee from Sports Card Live. I appear on his podcast every Saturday night. His podcast starts at about 10 p.m. Eastern time. I hop on at about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time for a few minute segment called the Vintage Spotlight. Well, that segment was recently spun off into a new show called, yes, that's right, the Vintage Spotlight. We just recorded our 5th episode today. If you would like to watch it on YouTube and you enjoy the video component of it, you can simply do that on the Vintage Spotlight YouTube channel or my Just Collect YouTube channel. And if you enjoy listening to the audio component of it only, you could do so wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts, like Apple and Spotify and all those good places.
Nice.
And so super excited about that. The reason why I bring that up is because we had someone on the show today. He's a collector, and he also just started his own podcast called Rough Cuts by the name of Nate. He's in Cardboard Veritas on IG. And I wanted to give him a special shout out and thank you for giving us the time today to appear on our podcast. But the reason I'm bringing it up is, we talked about a number of different things and what it's like to be a true collector. He was saying, for example, he's waited 3 years to find the right T206 Walter Johnson portrait for himself, meaning, Lou, he doesn't have an unlimited amount of money.
Right.
So he's the kind of person who wants to get a card that looks great on the front, but maybe has a little bit of paper loss in the back.
Sure.
Or some writing. And so what I wanted to ask the community here is, has anyone bought a card recently just like Nate described to me? Meaning you've been waiting for a while and you finally found that perfect example, meaning forget about the technical grade. It looks great on the front. The back of it has some sort of issue, whatever that issue is. And it's much cheaper than, of course, if you would have bought a 7, 8, or a 9 of that card. And he didn't have the Walter Johnson, but he had a few other examples that he was doing that with in his collection. And to me, it's a really fun way to collect. It's very satisfying. But you have to exhibit a lot of patience, Lou.
Yeah. Well, it's the difference between the collecting and investing part of it too. It's that line. We're dancing on that line. And that was a collection piece. He wanted a piece for himself.
Yes. And so one of the questions that I didn't have the chance to ask him, but I wanted to ask our community today, and I'll probably ask on Saturday night on Jeremy's show, is having a want list is great. So I think he had 30 cards or a handful of cards in his want list. But Lou, when him and I and you started collecting, there was no internet, there was no eBay. So fast forward. Now remember, this guy's incredible discipline. How do you, and I know you're not necessarily an active collector, but how do you, meaning the proverbial collector in our community, how do you keep from being overwhelmed? In other words, they call it the proverbial rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I can tell you it starts for me. Let's say it's 9:45 at night. Crosby's gone to sleep. Daddy doesn't feel like reading that night. I don't want to watch TV. I'm like, I'm going to surf eBay. I start off looking for an early Eddie Plank card. And at the end, I'm like, I just bought a Michael Jordan photo. How the F did that happen? Thanks for laughing. So I'm curious, first, has it happened to you?
I know you well enough. I know exactly how that happened.
Yeah. And so if it happens, what do you do to kind of reel yourself back in? So like to allow yourself a pass for that night. And I'm truly asking because I have my own ways of doing things. And I didn't get a chance to talk about it with Nate, but I found it to be a very interesting conversation. And I think that I believe that this industry teaches us a lot more about life than we thought. So in other words, if you're a collector, forget about, a dealer, just the average collector, it can teach you about budgets, teach you about discipline, communication skills, organization skills, networking. I mean, it just seems to be very positive.
Having a plan and having some discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my takeaways from our chat and our podcast with him today, listen, I already know I want to buy everything. In terms of like what I like collecting. I like a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I'm not short of interests. What I'm short on is the budget. So for the first time in a long time, and I'm going to give Nate credit for this on social, I think I'm going to try to come up with nothing overwhelming. What are just the next 3 things I'd like to buy? Is it a card? Is it a photo? Is it an autographed item? And then all of a sudden now I have direction. I can think about the budget that I'd like to spend on those items. And I really like the way that Nate laid it out, because he also said it's important to be kind to yourself and not be so rigid.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's saying, hey, Leighton, I can't believe you bought a Michael Jordan photo after going on eBay to buy an Eddie Plank card. But he's also saying, hey, if you want to do that once in a while, great. But reel yourself in back to center and say, hey, these are the next few cards that are on my list. How am I going to go about, looking for them? And I do appreciate the way he was describing his process for the Walter Johnson and some of his other key cards, because he said, he went over the pop reports, Lou. There's about 1,000 Walter Johnson portraits in the PSA pop report, about 1,000 in the SEC pop report. So in other words, there's no shortage.
Right.
In any auction, there's always one, a couple, etc. But what there's not is a beautiful front, and maybe some sort of issue could be on the front as well. I mean, it's not discernible to the naked eye, or it's an issue on the back. where it's that perfect combination for the amount of money he wanted to spend. And when I thought about that, like, that takes a little bit of thinking out of the box. And yet another reason why I think collecting is good.
Don't you think one of the first I'll call it a battle, it gives it a negative connotation, but anyway, one of the first steps here is separating out a hobby budget from your life budget.
Yeah.
The dipping in between the two, because that helps you create some of that discipline a little bit, and it helps you prioritize a little bit. And then when you know it's a hobby budget, you can have that little grace with yourself, knowing that you're not spending food to get that Michael Jordan photo you saw last night that you liked. It's a budget you already set aside.
Absolutely. Preston, I appreciate your kind words. Alfred, if we could bring up his quote, 'cause it's very nice about the Vintage Breaks team.
I've been saving that one because it's good.
Please go ahead, Lou. Take it away.
Leighton, I'm a believer in praising in public when praise is warranted. The team at Vintage Breaks are great. They are friendly and knowledgeable. He's absolutely right. And Alfred, thank you.
And that goes all the way down to shipping with Robert and Kristen, all the way up to, our breakers and everyone in between. And of course, our remote breakers as well. So they all do a great job. And we have some fun things that we're rolling out in the next few days. So if you get a chance, tune in the Vintage Breaks stream, youtube.com/Vintage Breaks. It will start at 3 p.m. Eastern time today. And I believe Bowman Chrome is rolling out over the next few days.
Ooh, nice. Leighton, I want to thank you for creating and cultivating an extremely fun, very helpful way not to feel awkward about learning more about the hobby. I was very sick the last 2 years and never forgot vintage. Yeah, Dennis, hope things are going well for you.
Same here, Dennis. And, we're grateful to have the opportunity to be here and provide, not just knowledge, but hopefully some fun, some laughs, even some tears over the Jets, through the years. But anyway, I see, Lou, we might be getting a little tight on time, and I wanted to talk about, I haven't talked about in any of the podcasts or the different things. It's hard to keep track these days what's going on. But I had something that was a first for us, and I wanted to share that with everyone that happened just a few days ago.
All right. Oh, I got to share it. That's what I got to do. There we go.
Excellent. So just the other day, gang, we had a gentleman by the name of Larry come up from just outside the Philadelphia area. He had been working with J5 for a few months in exchanging information back and forth. So in other words, we got an initial group of cards. We put it together a spreadsheet. We let him know what we thought the grades were, what we thought the cards were worth, and ultimately what we pay for them. And, maybe they did a few rounds of that. Larry decided to take the ride. Larry is a little bit of an older gentleman. And so I think he asked a buddy of his locally to drive him. And it turns out that this buddy of his, Bruce, had known Larry for a long time. And Bruce had said, hey, can you tell me a little bit about this process? Like, who are these guys? Why do you trust them?
Yep.
What are you doing? All that kind of good stuff. And so Bruce said, hey, do you think that they'd like to see my cards? So keep in mind, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Larry said, why don't you bring them? See what happens. You're going to give me a lift anyway. So we get through Larry's collection. I'm going to show off some of the highlights in just a few minutes. And Bruce explains to me that he has his collection. And I'm like, oh my God, Lou, this is great. But at the same time, like, I got to go to the bathroom. I gotta eat some lunch.
Yeah.
What's the scoop? So upon further review of Bruce's collection, how cool is this? So Bruce, I'm just going to show the initial group. Bruce says, well, it's not a big deal because I got rid of my common cards years ago. Okay. The only thing I have is a binder of 1960s Hall of Fame baseball cards.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And literally every card was a Hall of Famer. I said, Bruce, Goose, from what's the, how did I forget the name of that movie? Maverick.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, don't worry, we'll fit you in and we'll go through everything. And ultimately, we were together for a couple hours. It's the first collection I can remember, and you'll see why we're going to name it this, where two different families, two different collectors literally drove together from a few hours away and both had intention to sell their respective cards. So you might say, wait, doesn't that happen all the time? It doesn't. We have a lot of, let's say, a wife who gives a husband a lift.
Right.
A friend or a girlfriend that comes along with a buddy, but it's generally not just two separate collections. It doesn't happen like that. So anyway, in both cases, Larry and Bruce's collections are both from their childhoods.
Wow.
So I'm going to start with Larry's. We're just going to go through a couple cards.
So they're not collectors. They've just had these since their childhood and decided, wonder what they're worth.
Bruce was less of a collector, absolutely, than Larry. Larry seemed to be a little bit of a collector, and also they both love baseball.
Yeah.
So there was no doubt about that.
Good for them.
There is probably a few dozen Redmen. And what I love about collectors like Larry, he said, Leighton, he almost felt guilty selling these. I could feel it. He's like, but I didn't collect these. And I said, Larry, don't worry. I'll still pay you for them. And he was like, no, I know. I'm like, Larry, it's okay. You were given these when they didn't have any value.
Yep.
Someone didn't want to throw them out. So anyway, he had 3 mutuals, maybe even a 4th, actually. A bunch of stars, probably a few dozen. But he did not open the packs himself. And I appreciate that he knew that. Okay, so we're going to show off.
I'm trying to figure out why that was a problem, though.
We're going to show off. Let's see. He's got a lot of 57s and 58s that he opened out of packs. And we did a video together after we completed the deal. And he told the story about, I really felt like I was there. In other words, him going to the store, him stacking up like 4 nickels, and he just went through it super fast.
Yeah.
He chewed the gum concurrently. Because I was asking him, for example, like, did the packs make it home, or did you open them before you got home? He said, no, I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
And, he did flipping back in the day. And something very interesting I learned, which is part of the video, and then I'll start showing off the cards. So I've seen this before as I've bought collections, specifically from the 50s, a little bit from the 60s, gang, where it almost felt like the cards might have been waterlogged or water damaged. And you might say, well, late, then they were water damaged. They weren't. And I knew they weren't because I've had cards that are water damaged and waterlogged. I know what that is. There was something going on. I couldn't quite figure it out. And for the first time ever, I discovered this with Larry and Bruce. So effectively what Larry was telling me, he was really into flipping. So I don't have any comments here.
Yeah.
Maybe I have one over here. I don't. But I'll just use this card. So what he's saying is, imagine this is a baseball card.
Yep.
Well, I think he called it Wallsies or Leansies, something like that.
Yep.
So he was saying some of the cards, it was almost like we joked. And I said, I'm like, you were corking bats before anyone was doing it. He said he would like bend the cards just a little bit.
Oh my.
He wouldn't crease them.
Yep.
He would just bend them. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Larry, is that why some of your cards feel like they're water damaged or waterlogged, but they're not?
Oh, that's funny.
And he gives me like this grin. I'm like, I got you. I got you. Now, remember, I'm not mad about any of this. I'm just really interested.
Yep.
So keep in mind that what I just did doesn't crease it.
Yep.
You're not going to see a discernible crease. But if you look at it, it does curve it. So he had some cards that he did that to, and I had never really heard about that.
What advantage did it give him?
He was saying that it would lean against the wall more easily.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep.
Because you had more give.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. So this guy, whatever amount of cards I bought from him, he took like, let's just say it was $10. He parlayed that into like 500, meaning like of the day.
Yes.
I feel like, it seems like we have a way of attracting these type folks because we buy a lot of collections. We get people who were good flippers back in the day.
I'll bet. Yeah.
So speaking of Daniel Lynch, what's up, Daniel? I was on his podcast I think we recorded Saturday.
Nice.
But he just dropped it, I think earlier today or last night on his YouTube channel. And you can check it out at Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Dan's Vintage PC. And you can find him on YouTube. Not just, of course, an interview with me, but he does interviews with lots of collectors. Seems really fun. That's why I participated. And he did tell me I was the first dealer you ever had on there. And I was very grateful for that. So thank you, Dan.
Excellent.
So anyway, that's why he did that with the cards, Lou. He was definitely a ringer. He had like a few thousand cards. But anyway, I'm just going to show you a couple of the highlights. There's an MK there on the Aaron. But, some of them are pretty decent looking.
Yeah.
The Mazeroski has a little more wear.
I don't know if it's a new camera or anything, but the colors look really vivid here.
Yeah, no, the colors are vivid on this collection. Now, as we get a little bit older here, the 57s, I think some of them were pretty sharp. I mean, like that's a really nice. I want to make sure it didn't have an MK. That's the number one card in the set. So sans the centering being a little bit off top to bottom, gang, this card literally looks like it came out of the pack like this. So I think that's impressive.
Fish Hobbyist is just stopping to say hi as I found your channel. Glad the hobbyists who had taken us back in 81. We started the first major car show, which we held in New York City at the Statler. Wow.
Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, the Fish Hobbyist, I'd love to get acquainted with you. If you want to email me, drop me a line, Leighton@justcollect.com. We're always looking for interesting stories for Leighton's Loft, for my other podcast, Trading Card Therapy, for the Vintage Spotlight with Jeremy, and I know Dan is as well. Very, very cool. I appreciate you stopping by, and I'm glad that you found us. So as you can see, this particular group of cards is a little bit nicer on average. You can see square corners here, Lou.
Yep.
That's a nice Reese. Mazeroski.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Really nice group.
Very distinctive Ernie Banks stance,
Oh, yeah.
just holding the bat there.
And I tell you what we're going to do. We haven't done something like this in a while.
Every time I see Luis Aparicio, all I see is him falling, rounding third in Detroit for the Red Sox and costing them a division or a pennant.
So this is a very sweet giveaway here. We're going to give away, I'm going to tell everyone how they can qualify. We're not doing the old style giveaways that we used to do.
Yep.
But we're going to do something fun for this, Lou. They're going to have until next month's episode, so 3 weeks. And we're going to give away, in honor of my good buddy, Sir Charles G from VB West. He's a big Cubs fan. We're going to take this 57 Topps Ernie Banks, and we're going to give it away on the next episode of Leighton's Loft in a few weeks.
Nice.
The only way to enter, Lou, is they simply just have to say hi and let us know what they're currently collecting. And if you're not currently collecting anything, just let us know what you used to collect. And that will serve as your entry, and we will draw a person at random, and we'll give you a chance to walk away with this really sweet, fresh to the hobby, 1957 Topps Ernie Banks.
Say hi here or say hi?
Sorry, on our chat, because it'll be uploaded to Facebook. So that way, even afterwards, Lou, if they decide to tune in and to watch the episode, say hi, comment about what they collect, it would still serve as an entry for them. So that's the 57s. And let me show you. I mean, there's a bunch of cards, but specifically, I wanted to show you this. So how great is this guy, Larry? So this is the best or probably second best card in his collection. He only had 4 or 5 52 Bowman Willie Mays. Similar to the Redman Tobacco cards, he was 100% certain that this was not his card. Someone gifted this to him. And I said, I wish I had friends like that.
I don't know why it's relevant, but yeah, okay.
I just thought it was cool. He's really reliving, a piece of his childhood.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Pretty clean back. All right, so we're going to go through just some of the 56s, and then you're going to see why we're going to call this collection the Double Play Collection, although I gave you the sneak peek. So these are just Larry's cards. The reason why this collection is going to be called the Double Play, it's really 2 different collections, is because of that. We got 2 collections in one full swoop. We had no intention or even knew about the second collection at all, and it was really fun. Everyone was really patient, and then on video, the guys were very funny. So here is some of his 56s. We got a couple Jackies. I believe these are probably Hall of Famers or stars. Ashburn, Robin Robertson. You can see these are better than average 56s that are found fresh in the wild. You can see pointy corners, etc.
Yep. A couple of them very well scented too.
All right, so check this out. I don't remember exactly what it was assessed at, but this card, when it came in, blew me away.
Ooh. Look at that.
Fresh. Now that mark is on every one of the 56 manels, so ignore that.
Yep.
This
Very
is
nice.
A beauty.
Nice centering.
Yep. No staining on the back. This is awesome. So that is a little bit of Larry's collection.
That one's going to get graded. That one's going to get graded, right?
Oh, most certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Bruce's collection, we'll just go through a couple of the highlights. But that was what was so cool is that literally there was hundreds and hundreds of Hall of Famers. And when I was concerned about the time, he goes, well, don't worry, Leighton. There's no cheapies in there. I mean, what do you mean by cheapies? And then he showed me the binder. I'm like, that's so great. So I don't remember. Okay. It's almost all 60s. We'll just kind of show off some of the highlights. There's a bunch of Mantles.
It's not a Leighton's Loft unless there's like a dozen Mantle cars on here. We just get.
It seems to be that they're coming to us recently, but we don't take it for granted because you never know when the Mickey Mantle faucet will shut off.
Yep.
These are some nice raw 66s, or at least that one was. What else is in this collection? It's chock full of stars, that I know. I think there was, a bunch of Koufaxes. I think there's like 4 or 5 65 Clementes. Yeah.
Oof.
I mean, 5 Clementes from 65.
Wow.
It's kind of cool. So this was this is Bruce's cards. So we had to really do the eval from scratch. But he was patient, and we did the work. We were able to reach a deal. And Lou, we turned 2, baby.
It's just so fun. You just never know what's going to walk in.
The guys joked today, we got to keep bananas in the office because there's lots of times where, I'm starving for lunch. And I forgot we had the Loft today because it's the second week of Wednesday. I just, I already did an hour right before this with Jeremy's show, the Vintage Spotlight. So I kind of forgot, Lou. So we're joking like, we got to keep like bananas or some fruit on hand because you just don't know what's going to walk in. In other words, that day I went in that room at 11:15. I think like I didn't emerge till like 3:30 or, something insane.
Yeah. But fun. No.
Oh, listen, it was a blast. And speaking of fun, Lou, I'm going to close out with, I want to show off a couple photos I recently acquired.
Oh, excellent.
From REA auctions. They're from my collection. So for those that don't know, I've been collecting for decades. I've been collecting photographs for 20 years, and I know exactly how many photographs I've sold. I don't know how many I bought, but I've sold only 2. I regret them both. But here is 2 photos I recently purchased. How cool is this, man? If you are a fan of the Black Sox or the movie 8 Men Out, this is Eddie Seacott and Buck Weaver, who is one of the most well-known characters, if you will, not only, of course, in the movie, but on the Black Sox. Excuse me. This is from a few years earlier in 1915, but check out the clarity.
I know, right?
I love this photo.
What type of print is this?
It's a type 1.
Type 1. Oh, God.
Yep. Here you can see type 1. It's small, but it's a beauty. I mean, this is baseball history.
I know. It almost looks Hollywood. It's so real. It almost looks Hollywood.
That's what I mean. It looks like, I know. I can tell you like which tooth he's missing. That's how clear it is.
I know, right?
All right. So the other photo, now it may not be as aesthetically pleasing to you. To me, I love it. But I bought it because I like the way it looks, but I also really enjoy historical moments. And something I've realized in sports, when you can take a historical moment and pair that player with the actual object, you have to understand that it's very rare. It's not the way it is today. So in other words, if, Barry Sanders was going to set the record for how many touchdowns were in a game or a season, they'd had the footballs lined up, man. Right. But back then, and I had the photo in a different room, Babe Ruth's 60th home run ball was sold for $100 during the time period. Okay. This is I believe, other than Mickey getting his foot caught in the drain in the outfield, I believe that this is the iconic moment from his career after he hits the 565-foot mammoth home run against Washington. He's holding the very ball he smashed out of the stadium.
Wow.
I think that's super cool.
Does that ball exist now?
Oh, I'm sure it does. And I'm going to read to you the back caption. Smiling Mickey Mantle of the New York Yankees holds the ball he socked for 565 feet, April 17th. the longest home run ever hit in Griffith Stadium in Washington. By the way, Griffiths is named after Clark Griffith Stadium,
Right.
Former Major Leaguer and Hall of Famer. Mick in the dressing room after the game against the Senators points to the dent in the ball where it hit a house after clearing center field.
Good.
Residents of the house returned the ball to Mickey. Lou, this doesn't happen.
No.
And you can see the dents. That's absurd.
If only they could have looked ahead 60 years.
I love stuff like this.
Yeah.
Gang, I hope you appreciated and enjoyed today's episode of Leighton's Loft. I know that I had a lot of fun and appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in.
Yep. If
you enjoyed it, make sure you tune in 3 weeks. The schedule for my other podcasts or Trading Card Therapy gets dropped every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The Vintage Spotlight comes out every 2 weeks or so. And for my guest spot that I appear on with Jeremy, that's every Saturday night at about 10:30. And if you want to check out Jeremy's show, Sports Card Live, it's every Saturday night, starts at 10 p.m. And then, of course, my buddy Daniel Lynch was on earlier. You could check out Dan's Vintage Baseball or Vintage PC. I think that's what it was, on YouTube. He's got a great channel. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's show, Lou.
You do as many shows as I do now.
It seems like it's a lot.
Get the same workload, and you get all that other stuff to do, too.
Yeah, it keeps me busy.
All right. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Sounds great.